this world? Is the destiny of mankind controlled by some transcendental entity or law? Is it like the hand of God hovering above? At least it is true that man has no control, even over his own will.
Number 18, Berserk, the epic tale of a warrior's fight for survival, a young woman's thirst for meaning, and an upstart general's quest for glory. The friendship between Guts, Casca, Griffith, and their band of the Hawk takes them to great heights, but the secret wills of men and the hands of gods may threaten to tear them asunder. Oh, Berserk, you glorious, gorious mess, you! You would be so much higher on my list, so much higher, if someone had given you a proper conclusion. And what's frustrating is that it would be incredibly easy to do. I could write one. I know exactly how the anime should end, as a standalone anime series, not a commercial for the friggin' manga. But that's neither here nor there. Its lack of an ending really hurts it, but everything else about Berserk is a well-oiled machine, and a mythology buff's dream, speaking as a mythology buff myself, of course. Classical Greek themes of fate, hubris, carnal desire, and divine purpose. This may be a European-themed fantasy, but the delivery is pure Roman tragedy, and I love every gruesome, perfectly penned moment of it. Except the ending, which doesn't exist. Don't tell me to read the manga, people. I get told that all the time, and I just want a good anime, which, wonder of wonders, we appear to be actually getting a remake. I nearly wept when I saw that news. I love this series and these characters so much. The concept is great, and the plot churns forward deliberately as if it was fated, instead of just tossing around the concept of fate like many anime do. And Guts' brawn, in contrast with Griffith's silver tongue, are the stuff good legends really are made of. Much like, and I feel like a broken record, another anime or two much higher on my list, this has almost no budget to speak of, but what you can do with an incredible story, strong archetypes, distinctive art, and perfectly placed music, well, you can make an epic, and Berserk is nothing less. More than worthy of its spot at number 18.
They dwell unseen in the shadows, an invisible world of life within our own. Since the dawn of humanity, these phantoms have inspired fear in those who could not understand, and have over the ages come to be known as Mushi.
Number 17, Mushi Shi, a sequence of tales documenting the mysterious behavior of the mystical organic spirits known as Mushi, and the Mushi Master, Ginkgo, who helps the common people in their struggle to coexist with the instinct-driven phantoms. This series is like a lullaby to me. An old and awesome roommate of mine, who I hope is watching this way out in the Philippines where she is now, used to watch it each night before bed, and it was equally entrancing and soothing, gripping our hearts in its throat before sending us off to sleep with scattered images of the beautiful worlds we'd just seen still lingering on our minds. And maybe that's a little sappy and flowery, but there is no visual experience quite like Mushi Shi, a series much like Kino's Journey, but with a more ambitious wonder to it all. I could gush and gush about the visuals and how every single episode brings new marvels and techniques to the mix, but it is important to note that the stories themselves are pretty marvelous. This is the single most purely Eastern series I have ever seen in its presentation of worldview. A lot of people don't realize just how Western anime really is, how much the Japanese have borrowed conventions from us and belief systems as well. Mushi Shi is natively Japanese in its belief system and the lessons it has to teach, if you can call them that. Not every episode is a cautionary tale, even the ones where terrible things happen to the humans who interfere with Mushi, and there are a lot of those. Many are observations on the nature of nature and our place within it. And for those of you scratching your heads at this and the knowledge that I'm a Christian, well, that makes this more interesting to me because it's so different. Like I said, I see how Western a lot of anime is, so I'm pretty fascinated by something returning to the roots of Japanese ideologies like this, and what I can learn from it about Japanese culture as it was and as it partly is now. That was kind of convoluted now, wasn't it? Oh well. Mushi Shi is pretty, and it's captivating. That alone is a pretty good reason for a place at number 17.
Years of high school and the rest of my life, for that matter, are gonna end with no girlfriend but my right hand. I can't take it anymore. At this point, I'll settle for anybody be my girlfriend, please!
Number 16, Midori Days. A quirky story about a street punk with a long history of strikeouts who just wants a girlfriend. Any girlfriend. And a shy girl who only wants some way to get close to him and express her feelings, who, well, the wishing star apparently has an awful sense of humor. Now, strictly speaking, Midori Days isn't exactly my real entry here, but more like a representative of several entries. This little space on my countdown is where I feel like I would place all my favorite, completely stupid popcorn muncher material. Just the feel-good, no-brains, wacky cartoon comedies I watch with friends, like School Rumble, Famofu, Sergeant Frog, and Titalia! This is a home for all of them, really. However, since that would be cheating, if I had to give the spot a face and an identity, it would really be Midori Days. The premise, in case it wasn't morbidly obvious, just pretends gross-out humor and awful pandering. I mean, if this idea was done in the US, heaven forbid, that's exactly how it would turn out. But Midori Days turns out to be an oddly moving, extremely sweet little comedy. There's a lot of nudity humor, but it's in pretty good taste. The series itself is not raunchy. Characters are sweet, and I don't know, I feel weird defending it because it's a dorky comedy/love story about a guy and his right hand, so to speak. I don't know why I love it so much, but I've seen it many times, and I always end up on the floor raffling, but nearly in tears by the ending at the same time. It's hard to peg down, and I still think it's dumb and simple, but that's clearly not a bad thing. Something about Midori Days just shines, and I guess I gotta recommend that everyone check it out. It's that heartwarming and enjoyable. Check out the other comedies I mentioned here too, by all means, but I guess I really would put Midori Days above them, and in a cozy spot at number 16.
I want to go home. Even if your family were somewhere in this world, they wouldn't recognize you if they saw you now.
Why?
Just as you cannot remember the world that you used to be in, there is nobody in this world who can remember you.
Number 15, Haibane Renmei, the story of a group of angels in purgatory, really young girls who adopt wings and halos and have no memories of their previous lives. They must find jobs in their new haven, and above all, never leave the sanctuary, and never touch the great walls that loom over them until their day of flight arrives. I did not come up with this little observation. I've heard it at least 3 or 4 times from other sources, but it's true, there's just no good way to promote Haibane Renmei. You can kind of tell people what it's about, but what you see here, and what you see for most of the series, is little girls wandering around a quiet town talking and sometimes crying in darkened rooms. So it's not the kind of thing that offers itself up as a must-see, but I assure you, it is. This was the other choice alongside Kino's Journey for the book club I ran over at Anime News Network, and I was incredibly moved by its simple story. At least, it's simple on the surface, but on closer inspection, it's anything but. The series is overflowing with subtext about human nature and the concepts of sin, death, and of course, being a purgatory story, forgiveness. It never comes right out and says we're in purgatory, though, once again making this a mature fantasy with a lot of hidden symbolism it plays close to his heart, and requires you to make the effort to piece out. Unlike Razafon and what will be my number 4 pick down the line, however, you can shrug off every scrap of symbolism in this and still understand the base ideas and the emotional scenes perfectly. Once again, a simple story at its heart. The girls never tell us how they died, and with bare exception, I'm not sure they ever find out, but that's really not the point. The shelter provided for these broken angels pulls more out of them than any journey outside the walls that reveals some cold facts about how they died could ever do, and the lives they build inside of it turn out to be far more invaluable. See, all I can do is talk in abstracts now because there is no way to really promote this anime. Just go see it. It's beautiful, powerful, and more than deserving of its spot at number 15 on my list.
There's no doubt about it. This is a conspiracy.
Number 14, welcome to the NHK, the trippy, dreamlike, rambling adventure of Sato, a shut-in, otaku, hikikomori, and all-around whack job, who refuses to leave his apartment until a strange high school girl named Misaki promises to save him from his antisocial condition. getting him tangled up with a few more weirdos in the process. Now isn't this an exercise in screenwriting for you? Come up with a 26-episode series about a wholly unlikable scum smear who is terrified of doing anything or even leaving his room. Have fun! Oh, but they do, and it's one of my favorite quote-unquote slice of life of all time. Because like Beck, this is a no-frills view of the less sparkly reality of adolescence, hardly the conventional slice of life. Unlike Beck, NHK is gallows black. I guess this means I'm an awful human being, because the show can be nothing but schadenfreude, and I think it's just the funniest thing ever. I like how the story goes out of its way to explore every niche of addictive subculture in Japan. Otakudom, porn, even underage porn, MMORPGs, and that's just the common stuff. I don't want to ruin the really juicy nonsense Sato gets sucked into. Since all the lead characters are, certifiable, it's fun watching them bounce off each other and learn how their minds work. But I can't pretend I just watched this series for the cold psychological analysis and the morbid laughs. I do feel for these people, and I know where they're coming from. We've all had those dark days where we curl up under a blanket and decide we just want time to stop so we can never leave the house again and face what haunts us. NHK is just about a series of people who can't escape that, ever, but is willing to have fun at their expense, along with extending a hand of benevolence now and again. It's a harsh story, but not at all mean-spirited. Well, not very. And I adore it, placing it right here at number 14.
Hi, I'm Eikichi Onizuka, and I'm going to be your new homeroom teacher. I'm 22 years old and very single. My hobbies are... Oh, wait a minute, middle school? I'm in charge of the middle school students?
Number 13, Great Teacher Onizuka, about a self-proclaimed, well, great teacher, in truth a delinquent chasing high school girl tale, who turns out to be a better man than he thought he was and changes the school that hates him despite having hired him for the better, despite also turning it completely upside down. Now the higher we go on this list, the more you're going to hear me say, I'm just in love with the concept of this story, and GTO is no exception. That being said, there's nothing on this list taking precedent because of premise only, and again, GTO more than delivers in execution, too. Still, just the idea of a teacher not showing kids to value their education and become good students, as in so many other inspirational teacher flicks, but to basically screw their education if it's keeping them from being good people and responsible adults, which is far more invaluable. GTO doesn't teach math or reading, he teaches how to live a good life, and he's a juvenile delinquent. I freaking love that concept. Of course, GTO is hardly inspirational as much as it's redonkulously goofy. It's not the highest comedy on my list, but it's probably my favorite anime comedy in terms of loving its sense of humor first and foremost. It's simple, it's irreverent, it's dirty, but it's not stupid. The whole thing runs on character personalities and comedy of errors setups, and that takes clever writing to pull off. As I've mentioned in the past, I also love the awful dub here. Yes, the voices are over the top, and 2 or 3 people are playing half the parts here. But it can never be said they didn't have a blast coming up with these jokes, and it can't hurt that I love hearing Steve Blum. This and Guillemot are probably my favorite voices he's ever done. GTO is hilarious and moving all at the same time, and the best part? It's a comedy that evolves. The story and characters never play status quo on you, and all our players, along with the school, are constantly changing, making the occasional tonal shift down the line completely natural. Great Teacher Onizuka is one of my favorite anime characters, and GTO is now one of my favorite anime. I'm quite proud to put it at number 13 on that list.
I haven't hunted dragons in a long time. This is going to be such fun!
Number 12, The Vision of Escaflowne, the fantastical saga of a girl named Hitomi who falls down the rabbit hole, so to speak, into the world of Gaia, where there are dragons, magic, a war with the Empire of Zybok, and she can control its future with the powers of her pendant. Or can she? It's not nice to play with fate, if, that is, fate is really the force at play. Can a series be great on execution alone? Can perfect pacing, taut delivery, and gripping tension save a story and characters that are old as dirt and nothing special? This will be a question I'll have to address when